I think we've all been in a position where our plans have failed. We work hard to think ahead and strategize and prioritize what we want to do. And it can be demotivating when the plan fails and we spend this considerable amount of time making these backups and we have these other arrangements that follow and none of it goes as we want it to go. And I thought we would, for the first part of this today's episode, we would talk about what a PACE plan is. If you don't mind, if you could describe what a PACE plan is.
Well, the PACE plan is actually originally a military acronym, and it stands for P for primary, A for alternate, C for contingency, and E for emergency. And so pretty much helps you to first set up kind of 4 different options for your planning purposes, which you can utilize later on. And again, so primary, when you're making the plan, right? That primary, okay, so that's your primary plan. Alternate, that is going to be like, hey, this is my second version. If the primary doesn't work, this is my alternate. Contingency is like, okay, if those first 2 don't work, if nothing else, this is my third option. And the E, the emergency, that's like, well, hey, when something happens, something really unexpected, this is my emergency option. And it's pretty much utilized for any planning. So, you know how it is like in your life. Nothing goes exactly as planned.
Right.
So many times, if we got only that one option only, we get, and something happens, or just something that doesn't work the particular way it should, that kind of throws, that proverbial monkey wrench into our plan. And many times we get confused. Well, the PACE plan kind of helps not to avoid that monkey wrench, but it helps to deal with that monkey wrench, so to say.
Do you have any examples that you could use where you can kind of describe how like a PACE plan works?
Okay, well, we can use the traveling, right? Because you travel a lot, myself, as well. So you travel, from one city to another, from point A to point B. Your primary is like, hey, I'm going to be traveling, let's say tomorrow, by the car from this city to the next. Well, the alternate might going to be like, well, my car, not going to be available. Then I'm going to utilize different mode of transportation. Maybe I'm going to borrow, the car, from my parents. And the contingency is like, well, all the cars, kind of out of the question. So my contingency is going to be, I'm going to, take the plane or take the Greyhound bus.
Mm-hmm.
And emergency, like, well, if something happens, during those modes, or during, driving the car or something, what's my emergency? Well, I don't know. It could be like calling the insurance company. Hey, guys, I had, this problem with the car, come pick me up. Or calling, somebody who hey, my car is down, can you come pick me up? Or something like that.
Right.
So we kind of covered, we have multiple options for that particular transportation, right? And you got also the emergency option. If something happens, what are you going to do?
Right. The emergency really should be kind of like the worst case scenario.
Yes, exactly. Should be the worst case scenario.
Yeah. And
that way, you don't really think about it, because that's the worst thing. What you want yourself to happen is when you're going to get, to this particular situation when something happens, and then you're trying to figure out, like, what should I do now?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
As I said, it has been used in military a lot. It's never shown in the movies, kind of. It's funny part. I kind of realized everybody probably saw the use of yourself, the lone survivor, when those 4 Navy SEALs who were on a reconnaissance mission in Afghanistan, by pure accident, they kind of, I would say almost collided, but yeah, they kind of met 2 shepherds, Afghani shepherds, one old guy and one young guy, and they were just kind of discussing. They didn't know what to do. That was one of the things like kind of hit me right away. Like, that doesn't make any sense. They didn't have any pace plan for this. They didn't have any pre-plan, option like, what are we going to do when something happens? And they are kind of trying to figure it out on the spot rather than having the plan ahead.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. So, that's another question. So how should one try to stay motivated when plans do not work? How does one not be disgruntled and almost throwing the towel in, so to speak, when things or arrangements don't go to plan?
are you talking about like just a simple plans? Or are you talking about something longer term?
We can address, I think, simple. Yeah.
Simple.
Or just generally.
Well, I would say almost like involves, at the beginning, right? When you make, some kind of plan, when you make some kind of decision, what we want to do, at that point, we should kind of be thinking already like, hey, this is the right thing or not. And if this is the right thing, to do, that's what you want to do. The motivation is just kind of secondary factor. Right. This is something what we're going to do, what I want to do, well, then I have to do it, all right? That motivation thing is just, it's kind of like, kind of distraction, you would say almost to it.
Right, but you need a bit of motivation to actually carry out a plan.
Right. Well, I know, but you got to also motivate at the beginning. Hey, this is what I want to do. Like, for example, like, I don't know. Let's go back to that trip, the driving trip, right?
Okay.
If I decide I want to go somewhere to travel from one city to another, and I decided it already, that's it. That's pretty much set in stone. The motivation doesn't matter anymore. Hey, I'm going to do it no matter what because I decided to do it. So how to stay motivated, if something comes to my mind like, oh, this is stupid, this is crazy, just throw it away. Hey, I decided to do this. And I'm going to bring it all the way to the successful end. That's, how do you myself, there should be any questions, those temptations going to come to the head all the time, right? Motivation, that's many times, like in our life, right? We have make a plan, not just a simple plan like this one traveling, but plan like, I don't know, I'm going to finish this school, finish the college.
Right, yeah, something much more
or I'm going
to,
or I'm going to start the business. Or I'm going to start, some project on the house. Things like these. Well, yes, there's going to be problems alongside this process, right, until it's finished. But the problem is part of the life. I mean, nothing in this life is straightforward, ever. It doesn't matter how much you plan. Really, it does not matter how much you prepare ahead. There is going to be the issues along the road. But as I said at the beginning, when you decide, this is what I'm going to do, by that point, once you make it, it's like almost like you're putting a stamp on it. This is what I'm going to do no matter what. So when the problem comes, the issues, difficulties, the letdowns, and so on, all these temptations like, maybe I should quit, maybe I should not, continue, that should be, thrown away. It is hard, and it takes, some practicing, right, to be focused, but you just got to throw it away. Because, again, difficulties are part of the life. Mm-hmm. They are unavoidable. It doesn't mean that there is anything wrong what we do. Because, after all, we decided at the beginning, right, this is what I want to do.
Right, yeah.
So, once you decided, that's it, and you just keep focused on what you're doing until successful completion.
Right.
And that's what's a measurement of the success or not. Other people, successful people, in whatever field, they are, multiple different fields. If you, ask them, they will tell you kind of the same. Hey, I stayed laser focused what I wanted to accomplish.
Right.
I stayed laser focused on my goal. And I didn't let anything to distract me.
Mm-hmm. I was going to say, that's very, very much kind of like the position I was in, or am still in, with college. During my first year, I know a lot of people who dropped out of the degree I'm pursuing. They thought, it's too hard, it's too difficult. And, I could have easily joined them and then picked a much easier degree. But again, I had this plan, and I stayed laser focused, and I said, I'm going to finish this degree no matter how difficult it is, no matter how things might spiral, and did spiral out of control. And sometimes stay on track, keep pushing, and again, as you said, see it to completion, right? See it through actual completion.
Well, I would say also with that focus, other people they just make some kind of, plan. Hey, this is what I want to accomplish. This is some kind of way how I want to do it. Well, when they half-fasted that decision and then the planning, then of course, when a problem is going to come, they're going to question themselves. Mm-hmm. Right? And usually they gonna think like, yeah. As much energy as you put to actually making a right decision, what you want to do, because that's very important too, right? You have to have the right idea. Many times, we make decision on on something which we later regret.
Right.
And they're not supposed to be. You got to make the right decision. So that decision process, like what I really want to do, be really thought through deeply all the way to make sure that this is actually the right thing, not just for us, but also for the other people around, right? For our family and so on, because I may not make the decision which is great for us, but affects negatively, the people around. Right?
Right. Yeah.
And many well-meaning intentions cause the misery to the others, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
So, and once that decision is made, that's like a setting in its stone. Okay, I decided to do it, all right, and it should be like non-movable anymore. It's there, it's decided. Now, second part is the planning, right? It's very, very important. Not just the pace planning, which is more like an emergency idea, right?
Right,
The multiple different steps, right? But, making sure that actually it's like a good plan.
Right.
And it's right away.
Don't just have this sort of like, I'll figure out this part, right? you know,
Mm-hmm.
because I always see people, they when they think of a plan, they don't actually think of it fully, and they just kind of, they look at it
Mm-hmm.
from the macro size, I guess. They don't
Yeah.
look at it in a detailed way. And so you end up with things that people might have thought was not going to be difficult. And so they just said, well, I'll figure out this part, as I go. And it ends up just falling apart. Obviously I'm not saying like plan like down to like every single minute breath, right? But you should have a general like step-by-step process of what you want to do. So say for instance, if we're taking that traveling example, it shouldn't just be, well, I'm just going to drive to my location. No, you should plan, okay, where is my stops I'm going to take to fuel up? Maybe I need to eat some
Mm-hmm.
lunch right along the way, or get something to eat. Where am I going to do that? Is there any stops along the way? Also, am I going to have a signal to view the GPS, right? Do I already know the location? Do I already know which turns I need to make? Do I have, in that emergency plan, let's say, my car gets stuck somewhere, right? Do I have a way of calling for help if, I guess you could say, if you can't call like a friend or relative, is there somebody else you can call, right? So just to have these steps, planned out, and not just winging it with a, just a overly generalized plan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's especially important for the long-term plans, right?
Yeah.
You know, traveling, that's is pretty much straightforward. But when you're making like a long plan, like for the completing the college, for example, right?
Right.
It's very, very important to having a good plan if you want to reach destination, because many times the plan is more important actually the journey, which we want to set upon on, is more important than the destination itself.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also beneficial, very, very, very much beneficial for us, because in that journey, right, we're gonna, take upon, we learn a lot of things, especially about ourselves, our strength, our weaknesses, right? And if we make a wrong plan, a bad plan, even though we accomplish what we want to accomplish with the bad planning, it can make actually very negative effect on ourselves. Because let's say somebody plans, to accomplish something in life, like start a business or something like that.
Right.
And it has, like a pretty decent plan, but not really very well thought through in depth. But let's say that person accomplish that plan and is successful at the end accomplishing a business.
Right.
But that journey involved the cheating, the journey involved, lying on taxes.
Mm-hmm.
It involved being dishonest to the customers. Well, that's a pretty negative thing, which create a lot of regrets. Even though there is a success at the end, that person later on will regret its past actions, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
At the point, later on, some years later, it's just way too late to do anything about it. That deep remorse is going to stay inside that person.
Mm-hmm.
And that person is going to be miserable for the rest of their life, even though that business is going to be successful. But the way that person achieved that goal was the wrong way. So therefore, we want to make planning, right, but the right way. So it's actually beneficial for us, for our soul. So at the end, we not just only accomplish the goal, but also we actually, achieve it positively, which has, positive effect on ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. So to add another question.
Hmm?
should individuals always assume Murphy's Law, which is the idea that if something like the worst case scenario could happen, then it will happen? Should individuals always assume Murphy's Law if there is always a possibility of it happening? In other words, should people even plan for anything, I guess, in a positive way that is better than Murphy's Law? Or should people just really only like tunnel vision on just planning to deal with Murphy's Law?
Well, the Murphy's going to happen no matter what we're going to do about it, right? It's a life. It's a things which going to happen. Majority of the things in our life is out of our influence. And I heard it somewhere that in our life, it's about 80 to 90%, or our life consists about 80 to 90% of the things really cannot influence, and about 10 to 20% of the things we can influence, right?
Right.
So you would say pretty much at least 2/3 of our lives of the things which we cannot influence is our surrounding, the people around us, the environment, and it's also the accidents, our diseases, and the other problems. So it's called the life. I wouldn't even call it the Murphy's Law. It's all life. It just, things going to happen.
Right.
Nothing's going to go smooth, right? But as long as we got, as we decided first that what we want to do, and we got a good plan, which involves also, the alternate, contingency, the emergency ways how we're going to accomplish that plan. It's going to be all right, It's like, imagine that life is a river, right? And you are traveling on canoe under the river. And that river is full of turns, rocks, rapids, waterfalls. If you plan well at the beginning, your journey on that river, if you plan it well, and you really decide in your heart, this is what I want to do, right, and really laser focus on it, you're going to increase dramatically your chances to be successful on that journey.
Mm-hmm. I think we have time for one more question. So is there such a thing as planning too much? Maybe there's something in trying to experience things without planning ahead. Is there any reason to limit yourself on actually how much you're planning?
No, I mean, yes, you could, especially when you have a time limit, right? When you are really time crunched, and you have to, start something in exactly allocated time. Then, of course, but generally, I would say like, hey, make a good plan, make a good decision. What do you want to do? Make a good plan.
Right.
And then just don't wait, don't procrastinate, don't second, question yourself. It's just not going to bring anything new. As long as you put a good amount of the time into making that right decision, what you want to do, and put good amount of the time to the planning, and you look at it, a few times back, kind of like a devil's advocate, right? And double check everything. As long as you do that, right? After that, don't second guess yourself. Just go and do it. Because that questioning yourself, it's as part of those temptations, like, maybe I don't know. Come on, hey, you made a plan. You decided what you want to do.
Yeah, stick with it.
Step out and just do it. There's going to be problems along the way, but the problems are actually beneficial to you because you're going to learn a lot about yourself.
Mm-hmm. Well, that'll be it for this week. In the next episode, we'll we'll talk about the very contentious subject of dating and some of the modern problems and misconceptions with relationships. If you have any questions, feel free to send them to us and we may answer them in a future episode. We'd appreciate it if you could follow us on all social media. And until next week, thanks for listening. Take care and God bless.
Godspeed.